Welcome everyone to today's webinar with Professor Yong Zhao, a renowned education expert from the University of Kansas and University of Melbourne and several other universities that he's worked with. Professor Yong Zhao suggests that despite decades of reform efforts, our schools have not seen significant improvements in educational quality or student well-being. Meanwhile, society has been massively transformed by technology, but school operations remain largely unchanged. As artificial intelligence emerges, it will continue reshaping how we live and work and learn. In his presentation today, Professor Zhao will make a compelling case for why schools must personalize and humanize education to help each student reach their unique potential and become entrepreneurial thinkers. He'll discuss leveraging AI and technology to enable true personalization and foster the problem-solving skills students need to create value for society. With decades of experience studying educational innovation globally, Professor Zhao offers a vital perspective on preparing students for the age of smart machines. Please welcome our ECIS friend and thought leader as he shares his vision for the future of learning.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm really hoping to make a short presentation, but more a longer conversation. I just want to highlight a few things because we've been doing a lot of reform. Number one, because you know that is generally saying that the reforms have not really worked. All this. So most recently, everybody uses this data is called the PISA data. I just want to share a little bit with you to show you. Over the last really 30 years, 20 years, about 24 years, you can see this data, PISA math, PISA reading, PISA science. Ever since there was PISA, every subject, the scores have dropped. So this is, some of people may think about, wow, what about countries like even Finland has their test scores have dropped, and this is at the same time we have declined well-being. So that data is, by the way, if I can show you a lot more data in the US, in Australia, almost every country over the last really 3 decades have invested a lot in education reform, have driven teachers and school leaders and students to have new curriculum, new pedagogy, new assessment. But I know you are ECIS schools, you don't necessarily fall into all of those, but this is the big change that shows education, all those efforts have not really improved. Instead, the traditional test scores have been in decline. And that is something actually is worth thinking. We've invested more. We've done a lot more education innovations. We've tried new pedagogies. Teachers go through a lot of professional development. Educational researchers come up with new ideas, new practices. ECIS has put up a lot of presentations, every year. Why? And why are students feeling worse? Their social emotional decline. So this is a very big question to think about. My answer actually is fairly simple, is because we've changed everything that does not matter. What matters is really students, is our children. Education system we have that was built really based on the 19th century, Prussia model that is trying to teach every student the same thing. That is, we treat every student of the same age as the same person. If we cannot treat them like that, we put them into special education or we put them into gifted and talented education. We like to teach our children to compete with each other. You're the top 1%, you're the bottom 1%. We teach students really to be selfish. You got to go to Oxbridge, and you go to Harvard, and others go to community college. So we basically use one standard to judge the diversity of humanity. That's the biggest problem. We want them to learn the same thing. We assist them based on the same standard. We teach them the same way. We put them into smaller classes, like 25, 20 students. We think we're doing a better job. And that is basically how we've been dealing with. We've changed our curriculum, we've changed our pedagogy, we've changed our assessment, but we've never changed the space for our students. If we want any movement, we have to treat individual students as individuals. There was a book actually published a few years ago by Todd Rose from Harvard University. The book's name is called The End of Average. The End of Average. The basic idea is that individuals matter as individuals. And if you look at every child, when they come to our school, every child is already a unique young specialist, a young individual. Every student come to our school. So they have, if you think about it, every student, it's number one. Everybody knows about multiple intelligence. Multiple intelligence, the idea came from Howard Gardner. You may not agree with his division. You are mathematically talented, you are linguistically talented. I think that's actually not accurate. Because in linguistic accuracy, for example, you may be good at writing fiction, the other person may be doing poetry, the other person may be doing computer program. It's actually different. So I don't agree with Howard Gardner's, 7 or 8 categories. But we know people are born with different talent. Some people are born to be talented in one area, others in other areas. Nobody is talented in every area. Just take that one little idea. If you spend, we typically call this thing called 10,000 hours. That's the psychological myth that if you want to be good at something, you spend 10,000 hours. We call the 10,000 hour rule. Well, it's Malcolm Gladwell's simplification of learning. But it says something. It can be 9,000, 7,000, or 12,000 hours. It doesn't really matter. What really matters, if you want to be good at something, you got to spend time on it. But now think about this. If you spend the same amount of time on something you have talent in versus something you have no talent in, what would happen? Basically, if you spend the same amount of time on something you are good at, you have talent, you become great. If you spend the same amount of time on something you have no talent in, at best, you become mediocre. So that's why I never spend time trying to become a football player. I can't, I'm no good. I can't do that, well, this is why China, I'm Chinese. China has never been good in football, soccer, anything. So you want to avoid spending the time on what you are not good at. This is very significant. I was bad at everything, but I was good at language. So I picked on that. I'm horrible in math, but I do statistics very well. That's another thing, so there's so many, today knowledge is so minute. So when you are in some areas, what you spend time on is important. And how kids spend time. That's why we call it why family influences kids. When kids come to school, if you judge them based on math and reading, we misjudge our children. A lot of children have talents which we don't value because schools only value a couple of things, math and reading for first graders. And then we think about children are diverse also in personalities. Some children are just more extroverted. others introverted. Just think about your friends. Some people like to talk, others just don't want to talk. This is just if you take the big 5 personality assessments, that's very different. So you understand. By the way, a Myers-Briggs test is a horrible test. That's just pseudoscience. That's not real science. If you want a real, more scientific one, it's the big 5 personality assessment. But if you assess that, so a child comes to school who likes to talk. Some teachers like that. Some teachers hate that. So we suppress students. Then if you go to another motivation, we use Stephen Rice, talk about 16 different kind of motivations. Some people are curious. They seek knowledge. Some people want power. Some people want peace. People have different motivations. So whenever students come to our school, they're different. How do schools treat them? How do schools treat them? We seldom treat students as individuals. We treat them as a class. Even you think about a class is based on age. A year is actually 365 days. Even if you think everyone develops the same speed, 365 days actually is huge for 5-year-old and 6-year-olds. I mean, think about that. That's a long difference. So the only way to improve education, in my thinking, is to treat every student as an individual specialist. But traditionally, we have heard something called personalization or personalization of learning or personalized learning. That, in the traditional version of it, is actually not treating our students as young specialists. That's still expecting every child to reach the same standard, to pass the same exam, but maybe slower. So we're only adjusting the process, not the outcome. We still expect our children to be the same. That's why schools have a hard time, that we have to teach the same curriculum. We want the same test. Parents want the schools to do the same. We still want the children to do the same thing. That's wrong. The new version, my version of personalized learning, is personalization done by students, done following the students, not done to them. We do not want technology companies, by the way, a lot of technology-driven companies produce personalized learning systems. That's just like B.F. Skinner's teaching machine in the 1950s. It's just you teach them to do the same thing. Some may be slower, some do more work. That's not right. What we want is that we want everybody to become great in their own way. That is, we want personalized learning to be passion-driven, to be strength-based. So you want to develop learning based on each person's strength and make that strength even greater. And want children to follow their passion. So this is the new form of learning. And for a long time, we don't want to recognize that. We only want people to compete with each other. We want to give those who are better at math and reading to be better than everybody in life. So that's why you have data to come up to show, oh, if you're good at reading in 3rd grade, you'll do better in life. That's because we judge people based on reading. We don't judge people based on diversity. So today, we need to judge people based on their diversity. And fortunately, in the age of artificial intelligence, I'm pretty sure every one of you is thinking about what does artificial intelligence mean for our children's future? Well, we don't know if AI will destroy human beings. We don't know that for sure. But I am pretty sure in the age of AI, what we need is individual greatness. Are those individuals who can be great? Well, how do you define great? Great is something very simple, that you are the best in what you do. So you are creative, you're entrepreneurial, and you have great knowledge and specialty in certain domains. And this is why sometimes I would say creativity doesn't exist, because every creativity is combined with deep knowledge and great skills in certain domains. If you want to be creative, to be valuable and creative, you have to have deep knowledge. You have to have, discipline. So you have to be working in certain domains. That's why the greatness means you are creative, you are entrepreneurial, and you are driven by some sense of greatness. This is what we need in the age of AI. In the age of AI, practically every job, if it can be replaced, it will be replaced. And now most jobs are going to be disrupted are college jobs. You've seen the big tech companies. If you're a computer programmer, unless you're creative, you're no use. If you're editor, we don't need that. If you're a simple designer, we don't need that. You look at all the jobs gone, you have to become great. So creativity does not exist by itself. There's no generic creativity. Creativity has to be combined with deep knowledge and great skills. Now that can only be done through personalization. And in the age of AI, we need personal greatness. And today also, I wrote an article several years ago called The Rise of the Useless. The Rise of the Useless. Schools always try to make a bet on the future, but based on the past. So schools try to choose, what skills are useful? What talents are useful? I can tell you, schools have mostly bet it wrong. If you look at today's entertainment industry, how big that industry is, schools never taught them. We have to build new schools to do that. Look at sports. How big is sports now? We never thought about that. Useness or usefulness comes from another concept I want to share with you. I would call this the new concept is solving problems for others. Solving problem for the others. So just now I talked about why personalization is important, because personalization cultivates individuals to become great entrepreneur and creative. Then the second point is that how is your greatness useful? You have to solve problems for others. So that's the second point. So today in our schools, we need to do personalization. Then we need to develop a new way of teaching. I call it problem orientation. So we start by asking children to identify problems that matter to them, to identify problems that's worth solving. So if students are engaged in learning to know what problems are worth solving and then to solve that problem, that is a process of helping others, of become valuable. So you are great, and then you use your greatness to solve other people's problems, and you make an impact on the world and on other people. Then you are, in essence, valuable. And that value comes from living a meaningful life. I think human beings may define success in different ways, but a valuable life is what everybody wants. But what makes something valuable is you are doing something to help others. And that can be cultural, that can be environmental, that can be financial, economical, that can be psychological. You make an impact on other people. And that's actually where we solve other problem in our schools face. That is the social emotional decline of our children. That's been misunderstood. Like many schools said, let's go buy a social and emotional learning program. That's just a big mistake. I've reviewed the literature. It's not social and emotional learning that helps children. Actually, social and emotional learning can make it even worse for children and for teachers. You don't need that. What you need is to engage students and teachers in doing something meaningful. That's right. Basically, go back to modern positive psychology talks about everybody wants to have autonomy. That means you can make a decision about what to do. Everybody wants relationship. You want to build a relationship with someone, and everybody wants improvement, mastery, that you feel you can improve. This also goes to, Abraham Maslow's old humanistic psychology. You have to do self-transcendence. That means you self-realize who you are. That's your greatness. You self-realize your passion. That's what you want to do. And you're using that unique talent to help other people to solve problems. That is the best combination. So that's what I've explained, why mass personalization is necessary for all children, why a problem-oriented pedagogy is necessary. Now I want to move to the next point. The arrival of artificial intelligence is great. I don't know how many of you have played with ChatGPT 4.0. All these tools, just remember this, ChatGPT 4.0 is only a year and a half after ChatGPT was released. It's only that. It's how much improvement there has been. If you go ask ChatGPT, what would you do for education? The first thing it will tell you, I can do personalization, because it's great to analyze student data, to understand students' strength, to help students pursue their learning. It's great. But also, AI can do a lot. And of course, let's not forget, AI has a lot of problems. Hallucination, AI has problems like, bias, ethical issues, data privacy, all of those things that we all need to deal with. But just think about learning. What if we turn all artificial intelligence, AI, into IA, intelligent assistant? It's not an AI, it's IA. It is intelligent assistant. If we can train AI tools to become personal tutors for your students, or they can train actually on their own. And actually, I bet there are many countries, students are already using AI to do their homework. That's already doing that. I've been joking a lot about that. In many schools, teachers use AI to make the homework, students use AI to do the homework, then teachers use AI to score the homework. So nobody does anything. We just AI everything. And that's not the right way to do it. If you want to turn students into individual, great, caring problem solvers for others, what can teachers do? I wouldn't teach anything today. That's why I call learning has escaped the classroom. Students can learn. You can learn on your own if you want to. You can learn by Khan Academy, learn on YouTube, learn from AI tools. Remember all the AI tools, they're multi-age, cross-age, cross-discipline. You don't even need discipline. That's very different. So what teachers need to do in the new paradigm of education is to become human teachers. Human teachers are human beings. But in many schools, we have mistreated the teachers as mechanical devices. You're a math teacher. All math teachers have to do this. All science teachers have to do this. What we need is teachers as human beings. That's something machines can never replace. That's something AI can never do. So as human beings, what you can do? You are social emotional facilitators and coaches for students. Students need that to be connected with you. You are an adult. You've gone through a lot more things than children. You have wisdom. You can share that with students. You're also the human communicator. You're connecting students with each other. You're connecting students to help each other. You're connecting students beyond your classroom. So that the new role of teachers have to be very, very different. So here's what I want to simply summarize a little bit in this, because I want to have a little conversation with all of you. Recently, I was giving a seminar talk, a much longer talk, at the Learning and Brain Conference in New York, which I really laid out the argument that AI should be IA to support personalization of learning. And teachers should get away from being a mechanical instructor, but instead become human educator, take care of the social and emotional. And all learning should start with problem identification. AI can help you do that. A lot of tools can help you do that. So the new learning is personalized, problem-oriented, and globally connected. Because whenever you're using technology, you are globally connected. I've been doing this work in schools in Australia, in China, and some US schools. There's a bunch of schools I've been working with. We are developing a program called Human Interdependence Project, HIP, HIP, because I want students to learn that I have strength, I can help you. I have weaknesses, you can help me. So that defines human interdependence. And today, especially when there's so many human conflicts, human divisions in every country in the world. You look at Russia, Ukraine, you look at Gaza. Look at in the US now, divisions coming up, look at the UK. Everybody's divided, global conflicts. Human beings have to learn to live with each other. And living with each other comes from human interdependence. And human interdependence comes from we acknowledge we have strength, we have weaknesses. This is nothing new. Think about in the wealth of a nation, many, many years talks about that. We accept we will not be good at everything. We accept not all students will be will be doing the same way. We accept there is a bell curve, but there are millions of bell curves. We need to accept this. We do not judge students on one bell curve. We judge students in their own bell curve, that we do not force our students to do what they're not good at, but we want them to enhance their strength. So I would love to have a great conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very, very much. It's a wonderful, thought-provoking introduction to our conversation, as it were. And you've left us with that idea of we can't all be good at everything. And I had a flashback to when I was working in what used to be called special education many years ago, but working with students in a school that was specifically for children who were not considered to be on the bell curve and were pulled out and were not in the mainstream school. And what I think was probably one of my greatest educational learning experiences, in that it reminds me of what you were talking about in developing our strengths, because working with students who were considered not to be at a learning level that would sort of thrive in a mainstream classroom, the strengths of character in those students and the ways in which they were able to demonstrate poise and wit and humor and helping one another and empathy and kindness, and I could go on, but that were all characteristics that were not going to be measured in our education systems. So that human interdependence and how we solve problems together by developing our unique talents, as you talk about, enable to help other people solve their problems. I'm going to just ask a question. I'm going to kick off with the questions, but I hope that other people will jump in as well. We have a situation in the world, actually, but I know that you and I have talked about this, that in the United States, fewer and fewer people are going into education. People are leaving education as teachers within a couple of years of joining. And you've even talked about fewer people even studying and wanting to go to universities because of the opportunities to be able to go straight into companies where they'll be trained up by the companies specifically. How would you say? I mean, I think what you've talked about in terms of the humanity, the aspect of actually the social and emotional, the human aspect of teachers and teaching and education needs to be actually the educational qualification for going into education. Tell us more about how teachers of the future can be attracted to the profession because of that human aspect. Who are we going to be Who are we going to be
Yeah.
getting into the profession, and how are we going to attract them?
Well, I mean, I think there's one thing that we cannot address, you and me cannot. We need policymakers. The profession has to be paid a lot more. That's one thing. So it's I think it's still not a high-paying profession. That's a problem. Another thing that needs to be changed, honestly, is the flexibility. You look at the companies after COVID, many people can do 4 days. Many people can stay home for half of this, and teachers have to be stuck in their classroom. And I've written articles about this in the US. There are some smaller districts and rural districts are moving to 4 days. And there's no impact on student achievement. And because students don't want to go there, teachers don't want to go there. I mean, it's actually quite interesting. So if schools are wasting time forcing teachers to teach, but students are actually learning on their own. Why do you want to teach them? And the third one is what we can address. I really think schools should not force teachers to teach. I mean, if you go to classrooms, I've been to many classrooms, a lot of teachers, even before AI, are using YouTube. The basic is having students watching YouTube videos and they give them a later assessment, then do it again. I mean, another thing is that, even with 30 students, you're not teaching 30, you're teaching only 10. You're teaching the middle 10 anyway. And why are you doing that? I think teaching should be completely reorganized and allow teachers to teach different ways. I mean, there are old traditional schools that still check teachers' planning book, the pacing guide. I mean, they're doing their little stupid homework. You don't need to do that. Like homework, I think it's just it's a joke. It's a torture for teachers and students. Teachers have to give homework. Students have to do it. If we just we basically torture each other and you're happy. But you don't need that. Homework doesn't do much good unless you're solving a real problem. If you look at how meaningful is homework, nothing. But we just have to do it. If you don't give homework, feel like teachers are lazy. But it's nothing to do with that. And then teachers need to change. Like, for example, teachers need to, again, to become more human beings. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? We need different kind of teachers. Teachers can organize different classes, different students. So I think the school environment needs to be changed, because right now, when AI arrives, many school boards, school leaders, they don't understand. They just say, okay, they're going to replace teachers. But what are you're not replacing teachers. You're replacing functions of teachers. You're changing this. So I think there are many schools to say, oh, we're going to just have AI to do all the teaching, and we require people to do AI. That's not the way. You have to rethink about, make the job a lot more human, and teachers are much more likely to be part of it. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna hand over to Paul, because I was talking to a colleague of his actually at the school that he's at in Lausanne the day before yesterday, who works with outdoor learning. And we had a really interesting conversation along the lines that you've just spoken about. So, Paul, in your extraordinarily interesting situation at the International School of Lausanne, the ways that you work together, let's hand over to you for your question or
Yeah,
comment.
but thanks for all the frank talk. It's really refreshing, just to cut through things. Thanks for that. But I want to ask about just what your thoughts are about.
Although I'm just trying to ask, I just mute. Yeah, there we go.
Yep. I just wanted to ask about what are your thoughts about teacher education? Like, where, with what you've said, like, where is teacher education? Where should it go, or where can it go? How can it help?
Well, Paul, thank you. Just to be honest, I've been in teacher education schools for Michigan State University, so it used to be ranked #1, still ranked #1. I've been to University of Oregon, University of Kansas. I also teach at University of Melbourne. I mean, basically, it's a lost hope. I don't think teacher education programs can change fast, because they are regulated by different accreditation bodies, and the accreditation standards don't change fast enough. So I think what we need is to bring teachers in and grow with our current thinking. We cannot expect at least accredited programs to produce the kind of teachers we need. And we can, of course, keep advocating, like I'm always advocating, I'm always trying to convince them, but that takes too long. Another thing, I just wrote a new book with Jim Waterston, who is the Dean of University of Melbourne, about something we basically said, systems do not innovate. If you think about a system, systems cannot innovate. Systems respond to innovations. One of the issues, for example, people always compare, why don't schools change, but businesses change? I say, well, there's one very important thing. No business, when they make the change, they have a government mandate. Well, let Google replace somebody old. Nobody has done that, right? But Google has to come out with innovations. But if you look at a school reform, there's every school, when the school wants to change, like, in Francesco in Lausanne, for example, if you want to change, you want to change the entire school. And so that's probably the mistake, because you are a monopoly. When you present a new entire school for the community to change, the community, some people love you, some people hate you. So I always advocate called school within a school. A school needs to be a lot more diverse. So when you present a new model, you're fitting the need of the entire community. So this is why teacher education won't change fast. It's a system. But some teacher education programs could change part of it. They could have some new teacher education programs, and you could have some new teachers. So I'm always advocating for schools in the system to enable a space for changes to happen. But whenever we make changes, I would strongly discourage us to say we want everyone to change. I'm almost 60-year-old, so I'm so tired of convincing people. I said, let's just go do it, because everybody can make change, but we do not have the responsibility for convincing everybody to change. And also, I'm not sure I'm 100% right either. I think we need diversity. We don't, I've always joked about, I said, look at a garden. You may have a lot of tulips, beautiful tulip in the tulip garden, but it's a horrible instead of sustainability. In a tulip garden, a rose can be cut off because it's wild. And we need nature reserve. We need the wetlands everywhere. All plants are respected, all animals are respected. So I'm really interested in the diversity of ideas and diversity of change. Thanks, Paul. Anybody else?
Any other questions or comments, indeed?
Yeah, anyone, just feel free.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll jump in because I've been thinking, I work for a group of schools that have been established for over 50 years. So it comes with a lot of history and a lot of context, and it's a lot to move if you're talking about a full-on system shift, which is why I really appreciated your point to Paul, is that throwing everything out that's not going to meet everyone's needs either. But if you're working within an established curricula, you've got parent expectations, you've got all sorts of things that you can start to move the dial on. Where, I guess, where would you start, and what sort of small steps have you found to be the most impactful?
Well, Brianna, where are you? Are you in Europe?
I'm in London, yeah.
Okay. So luckily, I've been working with many schools in the US, Australia, in China. There are different ways to do this. Okay. So one way we've done most successfully is called really school within a school. As an old school, you basically say, I want to build something completely personalization driven. And then you basically you allow teachers, students, parents to apply to that. So that's very simple. So when students apply to this program, they're away from tradition. So they can be multi-age, different groups, So if you want to say there's a school in called All Saints College in Perth, Australia, they've built a new school called TSS, the street school. So they have a very different group of students, different. So they aim to start with, I think, 30 or 40. Now they have got probably like over 100 students now. And you ask the teachers who started this, well, the only thing they did, they overplanned, because students come in with their own curriculum. So they have a different place. The seminar school started in Sydney, in the Scots College. It's a boys' school, over 100 years old, and they just had a program called Scots X. So they just have students apply. Their first year had about 50 some apply. They took in 25. Now they just had more. They just second year now. So that's one way to do it. Another thing we did actually in China, you know, if you know any school, China is a very tightly controlled situation, right? I mean, nobody is more tightly controlled than China. So what we did in the school in Chongqing, we said, okay, we want to start a new program. It's called ICEE. It's called Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship Education Program. Students apply, and we started with, I think, 120 students. It's a huge school, but then we dare not to take the whole program, but they allowed 1/3 of the program to be in this. So that program has been going on for 5 years now. We have multiple cohorts. So that's something, you know. Another thing you can do is do something tiny, you know, just to say, okay, we want to start a club. You know, those students who wants to do it, let's just come. You know, I don't like the term genius hour, because that's just a bad term, but people like to use that. But you know, just a little club. If some students want to do something, or you would allow students to, how about Fridays become student day? I bet if you turn Friday onto student day, your curriculum, I mean, you will not suffer at all. You know, students, I mean, if you take one day away from traditional program, I bet your students' outcome will be the same. So anyway, there are many ways you can do. And yeah, visit. You can go to China, you can go to Australia. You know, we can go visit, you know. But thank you, Brianna. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing those ideas. I'm definitely going to look into those schools.
Okay, yeah. Someone else was going to ask a question? Or is there chats here? Oh, no, okay.
Any other questions or comments? Great. I know somebody put on the closed captions so that they were able to understand, because we've got people with different language backgrounds here, and so I'm grateful to to them for that as well, just so that they could really access what you were talking about with us. I think, you know, your message is basically about humanity, isn't it? It's about teaching for humanity. It's about as you said, you know, treating every child as an individual, and while we're still putting people through batches of age group classrooms, exams, which go back to standardized systems, we're fighting the system, and so thank you for inspiring us with alternative ways of looking at education. It's fascinating to me. My background as an educator started through the Froebel College in London, and Friedrich Froebel, you know, was walking around on the earth 300 years ago, and he was talking about individualized learning in gardens. I mean, it's just so lovely to hear you always giving the analogy of garden flowers. He coined the phrase kindergarten, in fact, all of those years ago, and was training young teachers then to be working with students in a way that was building on their skills and their development. It wasn't forcing them in, it wasn't forcing them through hoops. And so maybe, you know, what goes around comes around, and maybe ironically it will be AI that, as you so eloquently put there, will become our IA, and that we can return perhaps to thinking about what it means to be a true human being as educators, and use AI as our intelligent, did you say intelligence assistant, rather than it determining what we do. Thank you so very, very much for your inspiration with us once again. It's just such a joy always to hear you and to have our thoughts provoked by you. If anybody has something further that they want to say, now's your chance. And otherwise, we'll say a very, very big thank you to you, and we'll leave it at that for today.
Well, thank you. I think change has to happen individually. I really do think in age of AI, being human has to be the core of education. How can we be more human? I think that's the case. In all standards, Paul asked a question about standards. I think they're old. They are old. You know how many old standards, how many old approaches is wrong. Since Brianna, you are in London, the English education system is horrible. They've given. I used to travel a lot in England. I used to be, when Tony Blair was there doing specialist schools many, many years ago, travel. I mean, now the idea of to say, we give you more freedom and you give me the test scores is a horrible, horrible idea. I mean, how can you imagine today in the 21st century, when AI can do better than any human test? Why do you want the students to do the test? And what would English people be? I say English because Scotland and Wales, you have different education system. I just saying, London, it's a horrible system. I'm sorry, but it's and the way you evaluate universities is horrible too. How do you cultivate innovation? But I'm not complaining about England, so I still want to be able to visit there, so I don't want to complain too much.
Thank you. It's controversial, it's exciting, and at the end of the day, you're speaking to our hearts, and that it's about coming back to being human beings and rethinking and moving out of our systemic thinking. So a very, very great thank you to you. We've got some lovely comments coming in as people are just saying thank you at the end of the session. And I'll turn off the recording now. And thank you so very, very much, Professor Yong Zhao. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.